Hello, this is Allie with the Perception Trainers, author of The Perception Diet, and today we have what the next level consciousness living in equanimity part 2. So if you haven't watched part 1, you can do so down below. I put the link down there, and definitely watch that before you watch this one. And if that video feels horrible to you, if that feels awful, if that feels like holy shit, what is she talking about, or if it makes you feel really bad about yourself or any of these things, don't watch it and don't watch this one, okay? Wait till it doesn't feel terrible, right? Always listen to yourself. If you feel a little resistant and you feel a little like, okay, I can see where she's going with that, then of course listen, all right? But always trust where you're at, trust what's going on with you, and if anything feels terrible, let it go for now, all right? So that's that. So in part 1, we briefly touched on what a life in equanimity kind of looks like, right? And why, or the first kind of tool that you can use, the first kind of step that you can take to move you towards living this life of equanimity. And in this part, I want to kind of unpack a little bit more what this life of equanimity is really all about, and why we would, like, really the deeper reason why we would want to do this, and what it is, and what it looks like, all right? Practically speaking, on every aspect and every dimension of your life, all right? So to understand that, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I talk about awakening, and I talk about raising your vibration, and I talk about expanding your consciousness as very simply being increasing your frequency, right? So increasing the amount of information that you are allowing to flow through your being, which is the same as saying releasing or dropping resistance, right? We understand that when we talk about vibration, vibration is simply the speed at which your being is moving, right? And that, what the energy or the power that is providing the power for that vibration is information, okay? And so as you raise your frequency, as you raise the speed at which your density and all the other layers of yourself vibrate, and you can hold that new vibration, you raise the speed of that, you are increasing the amount of information that you hold. And as we increase the amount of information that we hold, we are capable of more order, more structure, more complexity. We become more harmonic. We become more sacredly, geometrically organized, right? And everything becomes more beautiful, everything becomes more harmonic, everything becomes more cohesive, and we are able to hold and to live higher ideals and higher structures, higher orders of things with ease and grace, because we have the capacity to hold that information, right? It's the same idea as, you know, someone in grade 1 can do a very simple math problem, whereas a mathematician in their PhD, right, in university, can do a much greater, a much more complex formula and equation, because they can hold more information, right? It's almost the same, right? The challenge of the grade 1 doing the simple addition, and the, you know, PhD in mathematics doing their crazy equations, the challenge is very similar. It's going to feel very similar to these two people to do these two very different equations, because this person in university is holding a much higher order, a much higher amount, higher frequency of information, right, than the grade 1 student. And so we need to understand this. This is all awakening is. We're raising our frequency so that we can hold higher degrees of information, and from that, we can live in a more ordered, more structured, more harmonic, more complex way. And understanding that what this means is that the world works better, right? When we look at the things that are wrong with the world right now, all we're really looking at is chaos, right? That we're not able to understand these higher order ideas that we are all connected. So if we build a pipeline that destroys people's lives for oil, that, you know, sort of benefits a few people, it doesn't actually benefit those few people, right? Everybody loses when somebody loses, and everybody wins when somebody wins. And of course, that's obvious to someone with a higher vibrational frequency, but to someone who has a low vibration, that's not obvious. They can't understand that complex of, you know, all these factors going on. All they see is this thing happens and then I get this thing, so that's great, right? Lower order, lower complexity. So this is what awakening is. Now, how does this tie into equanimity? Well, equanimity, so to live a life of equanimity, where you are practicing, so you are in a practice of allowing, okay? You are in a practice of noticing your resistance to life and reducing that resistance. It is a tool, it is a structure, it is a formation that you can use to help you move towards awakening, right? So living a life of equanimity is a tool for awakening. That's all it really is. And this is why we want to do it, okay? Because it's a simple practice that we can use and apply to every area of our life that will help us to lower resistance, therefore increase the amount of information we can take in, increase our frequency, increase our order, increase our structure, increase our vibration, increase our geometric and harmonic way of being, which then creates the space for us to live that way, which we then create structures in the world so other people can participate, and that's how global transformation happens. One person decreasing their resistance, increasing their capacity for complexity and order and sacred geometry and it within their own life, right? Which then filters out to how they live, which then filters out to the community. Okay? So this is why practicing equanimity can be so powerful for global transformation, right? It sounds very counterintuitive. To become okay with what is one of the most powerful ways that you can transform the world, but this is how it works. This is how, every good truth is a paradox, right? Every real solid thing that we kind of have to hold on to here in this world of duality, and we can recognize a truth by its paradoxical nature, because understanding that a truth in this dualistic reality is going to contain both sides, right? The ultimate truth is encapsulating of the duality. It's not either or, it's both and, right? So when we bring these things together, we understand that we found a truth, right? That's why truth is almost always feeling like a paradox, because it shatters the polarity, right? It shatters this dualistic nature and it brings it all together. So by you becoming equanimous with life, you release and your resistance to what is going on. You release your resistance to who you are. You release resistance to everything. This increases the amount of information that you hold. This increases your frequency. This increases the amount of complex ideas and structures that you can understand and live and create. And this creates order and change for everyone. All right? So that's what releasing resistance does, right? It allows you to increase your frequency so that you can live a higher ordered life. So so just quickly, just look at the kind of average person on the street, right? Who's not very conscious and not very awake, just working their kind of like shitty job and having their crappy relationships and eating terrible food and doing all these things. Their lives are not very ordered. They're not very complex. They're not very structured. They're very chaotic. And there's only so much information that person can take in and understand, right? You've had conversations with these people where you try and kind of like talk about a higher idea or a more broad spectrum idea, and it's like it doesn't compute. It doesn't get through. They can't understand, right? And even like we were talking about, right? Like the dude who wants to build the pipeline because he wants to make money. He can't understand that killing a whole bunch of people or destroying habitat or doing all these things is actually hurting him in the long run. And for some of us, that might be like, that's completely ridiculous. What do you mean they can't understand it? It's right there in front of his face. But it's like, no, he really can't. Like, the amount of information that he would need to be able to hold in order to understand that complex idea, he doesn't have it, right? Okay. So with living in equanimity, how do we practically apply this to everything that's going on in our lives, okay? So I'm going to talk about emotions, your point of attraction, your free will, and your desire, and how we apply equanimity to all of these areas. So number one, with emotion. Obviously, the very first step is not to say, okay, I'm living in equanimity, so I'm just okay with everything. Right? Because that's not really true, and that's not really what's happening. The truth about living in equanimity when you first start is, okay, I admit to myself, there are many, many emotions that I have. Some of them I think are okay, some of them I think I'm not allowed to have. I have a lot of emotions about a lot of different things, and I have all these stories about these emotions being right and some emotions being wrong, and I should feel this and I shouldn't feel that. I should be nice, I shouldn't be critical, I shouldn't be judgmental, I should be okay with this thing, but I'm not okay with it. I should love this part of myself, but I don't. There are all these emotions going on, and all of this stuff, and we're in resistance to a lot of them. Okay? So the first step with the emotions, with living in equanimity, and how it applies to your emotions, is just like what we talked about in the last video. You start to say, okay, this is how I feel. I'm just going to make room for how I feel. I don't want to make room for how I feel. Okay. I make room for not wanting to make room for how I feel. You see what I'm saying here? You start to apply this equanimity, and you start to notice where you're really resisting a lot of stuff, right? You're really resisting a lot of your emotions. You're really resisting a lot of what you feel on a day-to-day basis, and this is not helping you not feel that way, and it's not helping you not act in accordance with those feelings. It's actually doing the opposite, right? So the more you make room for how you feel, the more you make room for your emotions. It might be messy in the beginning, okay? It might be kind of like this overflow and this kind of like almost like this vomiting situation where you've been suppressing and compressing these emotions for so long that it's like you feel like you go into this like emotional wreck place, and that's okay. Make room for it, because as you go along and as you start to make more and more room for these emotions and more for how you feel, this magical process takes place where you start to have these emotions. Right? So you might have sadness, you might have anger, you might have criticism, you might have fear, you might have judgment, but they're not going to be so overblown. All right? Like literally the impact of your emotion starts to decrease because you're not so much in resistance to them. All right? And the range of emotions that you experience won't be so fluctuating. And you will start to come into this place where you have kind of emotional equanimity with your emotions. Right? So within your sadness, you still have a peace. Within your anger, you still have a peace. Within your anxiety, there's still a peace, right? So it's not that you necessarily get rid of all of your emotions. It's to say that you just get rid of the resistance to them, and their effect on you is going to be less, all right? So that's the first thing. You just start to make room for your emotions, all right? Now, with your point of attraction, basically what you're going to start to realize with this equanimous living, is that you have desire, right? And we're going to talk about desire as we go on. But I think point of attraction and desire really go hand in hand here. Is that we're taught, especially by the law of attraction people, that we need to focus on what we want, right? And so long as we focus on what we want, this becomes our new point of attraction. And we will then start to attract and manifest our desires because we're focusing on them. But we understand that this isn't true, right? This is not how it works. The real truth is that your point of attraction is everything that you are. Your point of attraction is the frequency that you carry. And the biggest parts of your point of attraction are the areas where you are resistant, right? Those little resistant areas, those parts where you are rejecting yourself, those parts where you are rejecting life, those parts where you are rejecting what has happened to you and what will happen to you and what's currently happening to you, that's what's creating all this discord in your life, right? That's what's creating all this illusion that you need to desire something different in order to be happy, right? And this is how this life of equanimity will start to actually blossom in your life and show you that it is not your circumstances that is or is not making you happy or unhappy, right? And you will start to see that a lot of your life is going to happen to you regardless of how positively focused or negatively focused you are, okay? That there is a plan for your life, and there are experiences that you need to go through that are for your growth, that when you're in a place of resistance will feel bad, right? Will feel like, oh my God, what did I do to deserve this? Or this is a bad experience. This is not something I want to be going through, da 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 da. But when we can bring equanimity to it, and we can say, okay, I'm going to face this situation, and then rather than saying it shouldn't have happened, this shouldn't be happening, what did I do to deserve this? This isn't what I wanted, right? This isn't my desire. I cannot be happy. Why? What if you can? What if you can allow this thing to unfold? And whether it's your best friend passing away or winning $1 million, it's allowing for it and saying all of these experiences are simply information for me. All of these experiences are expanding me. There are no good or bad experiences. My point of attraction is not good or bad, right? It's my point of attraction is I am attracting what I am emitting, who I am, right? And that is very much already kind of in play. And so am I going to be in resistance to it? Am I going to fight with it? Am I going to have a terrible experience of it? Am I going to try and make it different? Or am I going to go with it, right? Am I going to flow with it? Am I going to allow what's happening to flow into my life, understanding that it's trying to give me information, that every experience, none of it is like, oh, that's a punishment because you had a bad thought, or a punishment because you had a low vibration, or a punishment because blah, blah, blah. It's information. If you bring equanimity to your point of attraction and say, everything that I am experiencing is what I'm emitting because I needed that for my growth, right? You understand that's your point of attraction, is everything that is for your growth. That is what you are attracting, okay? You are emitting and receiving what is best and highest for your growth. Then you will start to have a much more pleasurable experience of what you're going through, okay? So understand your point of attraction is not focusing on good things and trying to ignore bad things. It's trying to see that there are no good things or bad things, right? All things are information. Everything you attract into your life is information, and it's there for your good. It's there for your awakening. So you start to bring equanimity to this, and you start to say, my point of attraction is perfect. I don't have to worry about my point of attraction. All I have to worry about is how I react to what I bring into my life, all right? And then the last thing, free will, right? It might sound like we're saying, like I'm saying, you know, your point of attraction is already determined, and these things are going to happen to you, and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, you know, in a way, this is true, right? You are having the experiences that you're having. And the thing is, the ones that you're resisting, you're not skipping, right? If you're really honest with yourself, the things in your life that you think are bad and wrong and you don't want them to be happening to you, you're in a resistance to them. They're not going away, right? You're not getting around them. The world isn't saying, oh, you didn't want that? Okay, never mind. Don't worry about it, right? You're focusing so positively, having all these other desires, doing all this other stuff, and this shit is still happening to you? Yeah, because it's going to happen to you, right? So we need to start to get used to this idea that there are going to be things in our life that happen, and that we don't know the whole plan, and we don't necessarily even know why all these things are happening to us. But if you can start to say, okay, all of these things are happening for a reason. My free will lies in, am I going to resist it, or am I going to learn from it? What kind of choices am I going to make within what's happening, right? So understanding that the little everyday choices that we make, even the like, what job am I going to do, or what field am I going to go into, or these choices are not actually all that big of a deal, right? We think all these things have such huge impact on our path, but really, our path is unfolding. You're going to be the vibrational being that you're going to be, whether you're a nurse or a filmmaker. It doesn't really matter. You follow what you want to do and what feels exciting and all that stuff, and that's great. But the vibrational being that you are could be equally a nurse or a filmmaker, right? That you're not really changing the structure of your path so much by your choices. Really, what you're doing with your free will, right? Where free will actually matters is how much am I going to enjoy my path, and how much of it is going to be a struggle because I'm resisting it. That's where your free will is, right? How equanimous am I going to be? What is my experience of this going to be based on how much I'm resisting and how much I am allowing, right? That's your free will. And so desire is the same kind of thing. You're allowed to have desire. Make room for your desires. Make room to go after your desires. But then be equanimous with the results, right? It's not always going to work out the way you wanted it to, but that's, again, information. It worked out the exact way that it needed to. So that's what equanimity is. It's bringing this neutrality to everything that's happening. Not numbness. Not I don't feel anything. But what can I learn from this? What is this trying to show me? This is happening for a reason. I wanted this. This is my point of attraction. So what's going on here? All right? So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below. Like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Find me on Patreon. We meet 3 times a month. We've been going for almost a year now, or for over a year now, which is like really exciting. Yeah, and if you have any requests, do that, and I'll see you in the next video.